Good morning, everyone. Happy F3 Friday. I am Faith Suggs, one of your hosts, and I am happy to bring Faith Family Focus. This is my wonderful father to me left, but to introduce ourselves a little bit, I'm Faith Suggs, Duke Women's Basketball graduate, as well as the Director of Basketball Operations and Social Media Manager now at Long Island University in Brooklyn. And my wonderful father is a former NFL player with the New York Jets and Cincinnati Bengals, and also served on an executive board and vice president at the NFLPA, which is NFL Players in Chicago. Good morning, Shafer Suggs. How are you?
I'm doing really, really good, Faith. We got some sun here. It's Friday, like we said, happy Friday. I got my Suggs mug, and I'm looking forward to this weekend. So,
any plans?
No plans. I'm still just kind of getting everything situated. You should see my garage. It's like a museum. I got all my sports equipment up on the wall, as if I'm going to be coaching again. So, making me very, very happy. You know, those little bitty things make me happy.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm glad it's Friday. It's been a long week working. We're in our first week of workout. So good morning.
Oh, Aaron.
Yeah, it's my first week of workout. So we've been out here. The kids really hate wearing the mask. So that's been a big daily to keep the masks up. They're exhausted. They say they can't breathe, but what they don't know is they're probably just out of shape. So that's why we're struggling with that. But no, after this, we'll have a fun workout at the pier over under Brooklyn Bridge, and hopefully the kids will send some sort of positive mood towards the idea of running.
Right.
But yeah, it's crazy.
How many girls do you have on the roster right now?
In total, we have 17.
17? Okay.
They dropped like flies. We started with 19.
Okay.
We have a couple injuries here and there. Of course, aches and pains when you first start working out again. Got some pre-existing injuries, but other than that, we got a lot of new faces that look excited. Hopefully, we can play some games. Hopefully.
Right.
We got a date officially on Thursday, which is November 25th. It's the first day.
Yeah, I saw that announcement. That'd be exciting. It'll give me a reason to come out to the East Coast, since I can't come out and watch a football game just yet. But hopefully that will come, at least with the Ivy League. But That's exciting.
A lot of stuff going on with football and basketball right now. Hopefully people are figuring some stuff out. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for trickling in. Happy Friday. Yeah, today's a fun show, but we welcome back everyone to F3. To those who are new, welcome. Feel free to shoot us a wave or a like. Our goal is to use our stories and our faith to strengthen the family core of those around us, as well as our viewers. So thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate you. Few little tidbits. We have a website, faithfamilyfocus.net, where we have blogs, all the videos and you can find of every episode. A little bit of who we are and who we work with, and anything else you guys want to know about us, even though we tell you guys everything. Yeah, we are excited to bring you our 53rd episode of F3 with a very special guest, a family friend, Rick Lights, former president of District 223. Wow.
33, I think.
33.
Yeah.
God, it was a long time ago since I was in it.
I think we were talking about that yesterday, and I think you're a junior, so that means you're what, 15, 16 years old? 16 years old?
Junior, 16, 17.
Okay.
You just had 2 kids. I know, it's okay. You don't remember what age we've been. But yeah, Dan, why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown about who is joining us today?
Well, Rick is not only an awesome family friend, but he was extremely instrumental. Of course, that was a transition in our life where we actually moved. There's Rick and his beautiful family. We just saw his lovely wife before the show. And there's Rick making, I think, a commencement ceremony. I think that was the graduation. They'll validate. So now that picture, we'll talk about that picture. We'll talk about why you had that bandage on your forehead. But Rick has served as the board president for 20 years, and really awesome, phenomenal stories, but was very instrumental in our transition, because as you well know, and we'll talk about it a little bit, that first year at Homeland Falls for the girls program, we were ranked number 7 in the country, and unfortunately We lost eligibility, unfortunately, and Rick was uh, real instrumental in kind of setting the stage, healing process, and coming back from your senior year, where we were actually able to go down and play in the Final Four. And as more pressure, he showed some, exemplified some tremendous amount of leadership, but then have a tremendous amount of empathy for the families, especially our family, who, was a transition point. We just moved from, was our first move since we had our loss. But those are really interesting couple of years, but it turned out to be really a wonderful experience, and we owe Rick a tremendous amount of praise. Very grateful for him being a part of our life. So without further ado, I'd like to get everything out there before we bring in Rick.
And I was just before we bring, I just wanted to give that, but before we bring in mine and we do a quick break, I just wanted to see what's your opinion though, because I just saw a notification on my phone with the football stuff. I just wanted to know your opinion real quick. Hopefully, what you think about college football coming back, about the Big Ten, all that. I know you touched on it a little bit, but now that it's sat in a little bit, what's your thoughts, Shafer?
I think I mean it's slowly coming back. Obviously, the Big Ten know a lot more today than they did back in August when they made the decision. Daily testing, making sure that you guys are safe. So I'm happy that it looks like we're making some progress, and that's because we're getting more information and we have more resources available to us. So I know I did talk to the Marlins, and they were very excited.
Right.
It's going to be football. It's going to be different with no fans because, like the SEC, Big 12, the Big 10, they rely on those 80, 90,000 fans to really make that day exciting. But at least it's a start. But I'm missing football. I'm really missing football. This is the fact that I can't watch a football game. I can't go to a practice. I can't coach anybody. So I got to figure that out. Maybe I'll start doing that in 2021 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so good stuff.
Okay. Yeah, well, after this quick break, we'll bring our guests on and we'll dive into today's.
Awesome. There you
Hello,
go.
welcome.
Well, good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
How's everyone?
How are you? All right. Well, we are excited to have you. What's been up? What is new? We know you are in retirement. How is that going?
It's going well. Since about mid-March, it's been SIP for me, and it's of course by choice. So it's been good. I've had a lot of time, a lot more time than I thought I'd have, just to reflect on things. This is the anniversary today of my 10th year of retirement, and it's been good. It's been very, very good. So I've gotten some tasks that I've promised I'd do with my home over the years. I've had time to do those things. I put a lot of water time in the backyard so that I can keep myself in physical shape, and it's just pretty much been, what I've wanted to do, and some of the things that I've needed to do. So that's been it. Kathy's been home. HF did decide to shut down on the 17th of March. So she's been working from home. She's in the English department. And it's been good. We've had a lot of quality time. We spent a lot of time together. We've done a lot that you wouldn't think you'd be able to do. So it's been good. A lot of reading. I've caught up on a lot of reading over the last 6 months.
Small blessing in disguise for a pause button. That's what I've been saying a lot. It's just time to do things that we haven't had time to do.
Yes.
But Dad, you touched a little bit on the story, so why don't you take it away about how the IHSA state tournament time, that experience, how we really got closer with Rick and his family and all this stuff.
Well, I tell you, you may not remember this, but I remember when they made the ruling that we could not play in the finals. We were all sitting parents at the meeting, and I was sitting off to the side, and I was watching Rick, and because it was obviously a very emotional time for not only the girls but the family, and I was watching, and I didn't really know Rick. I don't know if you know this, but when after that meeting, I actually I found out who he was, and I was not only impressed by how he handled that really very emotional situation, but through the whole process of us not being able to play, then afterwards how he was able to help navigate what I call a healing process. I know that you really struggled with possibly coming back your senior year because it was just such an experience. But just having conversations with Rick and just having his insight on maybe some of the causes of what happened, and just kind of brought everything back to a place where I felt our senior year was really wonderful. And I don't know, Rick, if you want to kind of share a little of your insight on that, but you were tremendous. Just with your experience over many, many years, of course, people don't know that you have a sports background too, and you were you had a pretty good lens on the dynamics, political dynamics of what was going on with the IHSA, and just was able to just kind of make things right. And I know, unfortunately, we never did get our season back, but got our coach back. We were able to go back our senior year, and we were able to do some really, really good things. I know that one of the most memorable moments was, I think, after we beat Marion Catholic. I don't know if you remember that game of Marion Catholic, and you're standing there with Faith after the game. Faith, you still have that picture, I think, that one there. Yeah, yeah. But before you dive into what you remember about that game, maybe you just want to kind of touch um, on the IHSA experience that you had.
Well, the IHSA, has two histories. One is the history as an organization that represents, by and large, its domiciled downstate outside of Springfield, and it has a downstate history. And then it has the CPS, the Chicago Public School history. And for obvious reasons, and I like this blog. I've looked at some of your episodes, and it's very positive. And so I won't focus on the negative side of it, because I think we can all figure out what the issues are. One of the things HF learned as our population began to metamorphosize from when I came on the board in '97. When I moved to Homewood was Crosspoint High School had probably 5% of the student body was of color. I came on the school board in '97, and between '97 and the time I left the board in 2017, we shifted from about that particular metric to a metric that now looks like about 70% of people of color and all others. So when you talk about IHSA, when you talk about the history there, and I got a lot of background, I had a lot of help with the pain that we all felt with what happened with Marty Hickman and that crew. And I had a lot of it because in my fraternity, which is kept outside, I had a number of people who were very, very steeped in sports. Walter Smith, J.W. Smith, ran all of CPS, all sports, when Paul Vallis was the superintendent with Londine Davis. George Stanton won 2 state championships with Whitney Young. And so subsequently, he had found himself on the sad side of the Hickman crew. Right. And of course, you know what that thing was about. People kissed the ring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They pit the best teams in the Chicago metropolitan area. They pit them together to knock out, so the best teams knock out the second best teams, so that when they get downstate, they really only have to whistle out one or two teams. And so knowing that, there was a lot of angst built up in me and dealing with IHSA, but I had a lot of help. I had people who, like George Stanley, who said, Rick, you make them the IHSA. You put their feet to the fire and you test them and you push them. You make them make tough decisions. And of course, you know how things worked out with Coach Smith. Literally 1 week after, they found out that we would make our admissions, et cetera, which every school could have made, by the way. Coach Smith was completely absolved of all offenses. So yeah, it was hurtful, but my mom used to always say, "Good Lord guarantees you unrequited love, and He loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it. But what He doesn't guarantee is a pain-free life."
Right.
And I realized that. So when you show that picture, I was at that game, and I remember some aspects of that game as if I just saw it this past weekend. Especially Faith. Faith in the game. I believe that that game was one of the best ladies games that I had ever seen. It was because both teams were so pumped, and I believe Marion had been downstate twice. I think they won once.
Yeah, they did.
And of course, they had their star. I believe it was Tanaya Page was her name or something like that. And boy, I mean, this girl had a vertical when on her jump shot that some of the boys would have had tough dealing with. And we had our star, which was my daughter. And so I was pumped. We were all pumped. And I don't want to tell you how to build a watch. You just asked me what time it was, so I'll kind of cut to that picture. I remember that late in that game, I don't know what happened, but Faith ended up going out of the game dripping blood. And I was looking straight at it. So I don't know, something, a scramble or something happened under that basket, and she went to the sideline just dripping blood. And it was the fourth quarter. And of course, as I was watching the trainer and the coach try to get her down, she's jumping around and looking backward trying to get there. People are moving out of the way because she's slinging blood. They wrap her up. Faith, I hate to say this, the only thing that was reminiscent when I saw you come back out with that bandage on your head were some of the guys in my squad looked like after we came back from a fire mission in Vietnam.
It was ridiculous. It was like 6 times around the head, 3 wrap.
Yeah, and I remember Tony Smith. I remember when he finally said he was jumping and pulling and trying to get back in the game and trying to calm me down. And when he finally said, "Okay, go back," he ran out on the court. He had to grab it and say, "Wait, you do have to go to the scorer's table and report in." But then after that, I think he went back in on defense, got a rebound. Came down, went over to the left corner in front of your bench and dropped the 3-point shot. I said, "My God, that's just unbelievable." And of course, you won that game. We beat that team. It was a great game, and for sports, when you love sports, it can give you a high that you just can't ever resist. But it was a gut check without question.
Yeah.
And I remember that and a couple of other things. But go ahead. I don't know if that sums up pretty much what I remember anyway.
Yeah, and I think that you touched on a big point, which was something in that time period, junior year, was something that I had to realize at why we were, all the attention was on us and why all the criticism was on us. And that was something, I think that was a moment my eyes really opened to kind of what IHSA was about, but also kind of like just in general Illinois history of sports and basketball. And no matter how great we were, and we did a lot. We went out of state, we traveled, we played against literally the top teams in the country, which is great publicity, great stardom for the state and for our sports, but it didn't really matter when we came back because at the end of the day, they still took it away. So that was something that was really eye opening for me at the time, that we really were our own little support system within the community. And Coach Smith, I think, handled that really gracefully too, because it was not fair and it was hard,
Yeah.
especially the seniors that year, for sure. I couldn't imagine. Um, and yeah, it was just eye opening. I know, Dad, you and I spoke about it a lot, and even while we look back on it, I just saying kind of see from our own experience of it. And I remember the Rainbow Coalition, everybody got involved. It was crazy, but it was like everyone's eyes were on it because it was hard not to point out what it was. It really was. It was hard.
Right. Well, it gets back to some of our today's narrative, right? About some microaggressions that we all experience, and behind, we behind closed doors, that stuff was existing. When I was playing, I know Rick, a little bit older than I am, but some of that stuff exists. And for you, for the first time, to have visibility to unfairness, perception, injustice. Coach Smith was the USA coach of the year, and now was coach U.S. Olympic coach, but then he did all that fruit. But as I talked before, when I was talking about Rick, our following year, although we had a very good coaching year, we overcame a tremendous amount of adversity. The girls came together, and we we went down state, and we were the Final Four. There we are. Yeah. It's just a tremendous experience.
Yeah, I can believe it. Unfortunately, I was out of town on business, and I never had the opportunity to get downstate to see that game. But of course, the guy that was standing on the left side of that line as he faces us, that's the good Dr. Mansfield, would have me on quick dial, and he was giving me blow by blow.
Always to the left, yeah. Wonderful man.
Yeah, he's a terrific guy. He's still one of my dearest friends now. And but I do remember at McCauley that game. I believe young Mrs. Bishop hit her only shot of that game, which happened to be a 3 that put that game in the record book, as I recall.
Yeah.
And after that, of course, Faith. One other thing too is that I noticed, and your father would have noticed that in the New York Minute, and that is that team in your senior year, because you lost some really good players in your junior year. And so, of course, you wonder how, who's going to step up and replace, especially that hot guard. But boy, I'll tell you what, you became more of a team. But clearly, it was your team. I think young Mrs. Rubin started stepping up. Her footwork got to be so much better between her junior and senior year. And so she came up pretty big against Marion as the junior too. But it became your team, and one of the things with education that you like, and one of the things that drives the board member, if you're there for the right reason, is that you see the developmental aspect of young people. And I said, here's your daughter who's arguably, I said, don't go one more inch, because if you do, I'm going to be angry with you. But here's a 6'2" young lady, who was so poised, and quiet, and had a quiet dignity despite some really tough things in life. And it always fascinated me to see you and to see a lot of your teammates. But I always had to remind myself that despite the fact that once you put that warrior paint on and get on the court, you're just good athletes, you're still only 15 or 16 years old. And that's the tough thing to realize. And I think the thing that Ron and I agreed with 100% is that when adults, to the detriment of young people, promote their agendas without any remorse, that's the thing that just makes you want to rip their throats out. So, back to McCauley. After that game, of course, it was a great game. terrific ending again with the 3-point shot. And I remember talking to you in the middle of the court, and I said, one year, one of these years, I'm going to ask you who the MVP of your senior season was. And I said, you probably won't know where I'm going when I ask that question. But I think the answer I was looking for is the MVP for you, given what you're doing now, given your career at Duke, and your future. I think your MVP was Marty Hickman.
I think, and I remember that.
Told you she remembered it.
I'm surprised you do, because your head was just going. You were left, you were right. You want to get back with teammates the whole 9 yards. And here's this old man standing up, curmudgeon, talking to you about something that is so far out in the future. But understanding the kind of world that we're in, and putting yourself in a position where you can still find a way and a place to get joy out of your life. You need to have Marty Hickman's in your life.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, but in my experience in life has shown me for most of my days that the obstacle in life is the correct path.
Yep.
And I found that to be true for me. And I think you found it to be true for you. So yeah.
I say that all the time. I say it on our show. I had a solo show where I went through it as well. The idea of adversity, and that's one thing I think our family has learned. Devin and I mostly, I mean, Dad, obviously you, but Devin and I growing up and still in the first quarter of our lives, learning that adversity is something that instead of wishing it didn't happen, you appreciate that it happened, and you look at it more as a hidden silver lining blessing, an obstacle that God put in your way, instead of something that tried to stop you. We now can look at adversity as a lesson, as something that builds you stronger, because they're kind of like grace notes, right? You look back on them and you're like, well, if I didn't have this adversity, where would I be in my life? If I didn't have this experience, where would I be in your life? And you can't even imagine how your life would be, because you see how so much positive can come from something that was so hurtful or painful or a struggling experience. So you're 100% right. Like people like Marty Hickman, they're all over. We all have somebody. We all have experienced an experiencer like him, or he comes in the eyes of an event or a job loss or something like that causes some sort of detour in our lives. But it serves as a great lesson. And that's 100% something I always talk about. Dad knows I always talk about it. I'm sure it gets annoying to him, because he's always like, why does she never struggle with adversity? But it's like, because you always know that there's something on the other side. You always know there's another path. If there wouldn't, it wouldn't be thrown at you if there wasn't a solution. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's really true. And so, and we see that, and we can philosophize, and in your show you'd be late for practice today, but yeah. And I think the thing that I like most about your personality, and the thing that always stood out to me, was your poise as a young lady, and your poise is still a young lady, but with a lot more experiences. And good God, Shafer, who's Defensive Player of the Year, taking 100 charges? I mean, that's the Atlantic Coast Conference, isn't it?
ACC, yeah.
Yeah, that's the Atlantic Coast Conference. I mean, that's Clemson and Florida State, and I mean, you're not playing against Mick the Moke. These are
Notre Dame.
These are serious. Notre Dame. These are serious athletes. So you've been a tough cookie, and you can leave the basketball court and go straight to the runway and be just the lady that you are. So it's
I told him about the over 90 push-ups that you did.
90.
Oh God.
91. 91.
Oh, God. Yeah.
91, and I will never do it again.
No.
I'm not doing that again. And your whole body shaking, your heart hurting, your legs hurt, your whole body push-ups. I'm never doing it again.
Yeah. Well, Faith, here's something to help you out. I was an airborne ranger and a squad leader in Vietnam. And I can tell you this, in my whole life, I have never done 90 push-ups.
Well, because nobody in their right mind would do 91 push-ups. I don't know why we did it. It was funny because the story is so you have to do 50 push-ups in order for you to get cleared to go to practice.
Yes.
And so we're a freshman. When I came in, I only did 21 push-ups, right? And you have to like touch the plate, like they put the plate in front of you. And so by the end of my freshman year, we didn't make the tournament, so we all got 50, right? It was like a goal that we got. And my sophomore junior year, there was a new kind of we trying to figure it out that the push-ups is something like if you practice it, but you also have to train certain muscles. You can get 90, we were thinking 60, right? Or 70.
Sure.
We got to a point where we got to 50, and then I got to 60, and then I got to 91. And it's funny because the next year I got I think I did 70, but it was this mentality amongst the team and the program that it was like now 50 isn't enough, right?
Sure.
So I did 91, but then that's not the most. Like Lexi Brown then did 100, and then my roommate Kyra Lambert got 104, and then like
Wow.
it kept going back and forth. That was the most that she had ever seen kids do push-ups in her programs, either from Michigan State to Duke. Like that was the most, right? And so now, like the push-ups aren't even something we used to regret the push-ups. We hated that because it was the most stressful. Because when you get to college sports, it's pressure, right? If you don't succeed, it's like a terrible feeling. And now that being on the coach's side of it, I'm like, thank goodness I'm not there anymore. It's so stressful. Like the kids are like, you have to make the times, you got to get the numbers. But yeah, that number kept rising and rising. So 50 was never enough. I think 50 was only it for 1 year, because after that it was like if somebody did 70, the next person would try to would go 71, and we would always fight to who goes last. Sure. Because you don't want to go first and not get the top number. So yeah, 91, and I will never do it again. But now for the rest of my life, if you say do 50 push-ups, I can definitely do 50 push-ups, because that's like
wow.
10 push-ups for us.
Warm up, huh?
But it's also because your mind, and that we talk about training your mind is so trained to just do 50, right, and go beyond 50. So, yes. And that's one thing, I think that's a great lesson that I've had in life, is learning that like if you constantly make it a habit to go above what your goal is, then the main goal seems so minor compared to what you've been doing.
Mm-hmm, sure.
But one question, I know we spoke a little bit about football coming back. And obviously we all don't know how we feel about it. We're excited sports are back because a lot of the kids want to play, of course, because they're kids. And they just want to play the sport they love. But obviously we have their health to consider. We got coaches' health to consider. What's your thoughts about college football coming back? Because we spoke a lot about it. We've had many discussions with many people on the show. And I've had many discussions with Devin over at Yale. And Devin's like, I'm bored out of my mind. I want to play. And I was like, well, as long as you're inside and getting tested and everything. And he was like, whatever. You know, kids, they want to play. What's your opinion on it? What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you have the right person, in the next screen to talk about, the pros and cons of it from a player's perspective. I never played a down of football in my life. So you have the right perspective from your father, who just kind of highlighted some of the shortcomings of this year for him, because he can't go to a game, he can't coach it and do anything. But the perspective from the standpoint of a viewer and a lover of football, and I love football,
right,
is that for me, the perspective is always, no matter what, the safety of the player is first and foremost. And football's come a long way from running burpees until, you're throwing up, because now we realize that dehydration is not the answer. Hydration is the answer. So football's metamorphosized into something that it should represent, as all sports should represent. And that is, let's play this game, let's enjoy this game, but let's also be healthy and not leave something behind. So my view is Faith, let me take a turn here. I love to play golf. It's just something I can do at 76 years old. Jesus Christ, obviously I'm not going to be running wind sprints.
Right.
But here's what what I learned this summer with C19, and that is I love golf. I did not once I realized how pervasive this thing was. I never even unwrapped my golf clubs this summer.
Hmm.
And my wife kept saying, "Well, why don't you out and hit balls? Or why don't you go? It's moved up on the list of dangerous activities to number two, least dangerous." So do it. And I said, I thought about it and I wanted to do it, but it's like anything else. It's like you and the push-ups. It's like your dad. Having to run that last 50 when he's playing. If you can't do things with every aspect of what it represents to you, I don't like doing it at all.
Right.
Okay, so if I can't go out and hack up the golf course and then say that's okay, I said they'll be next week, but in the meantime, I'm going in and I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna sit down with 35 guys most of whom I really like and enjoy, and we're gonna talk, and they're gonna say, Rick, boy, you did things that golf balls were never created to do with that ugly swing, and I'm saying that's okay, I'll get better. But the whole 9 yards, everything that goes into playing golf speaks to connectivity. And I realized that if I can't connect in a way that I grew up with my friends and people I care about, and more importantly, if I could represent a threat to them if I violate some of the science, some of the approaches, and some of the suggestions about how to avoid this awful virus. So I said, that's not for me to do. That's not golf to me. So I think with football, if I can't be in the big house, with the other 130,000 fans, or I can't go to a football game and run into people that I've known over the years and give them a hug, and talk for a minute and without being 6 feet away from them, and then looking back to find out I'm only 1 foot away from the person behind me who is coughing. That's not fun to me. What's
Right.
fun to me is to be able to stand up next summer when there is a proven vaccination, and stand up next summer when all of my friends have come through this. I've lost 3 friends since March to the virus. And the one that really got on me was a guy that named Philip Cooper. If Faith Shafer, if there were 8 days in the week, Cooper would have been in the gym working out on the 8th day. He was diagnosed with COVID on April the 2nd, and he was dead by April 9th.
Wow.
And I said, my God, if that tells you anything, a guy that got smacked around in Nam and had, ischemic heart disease as a result of Agent Orange, which was the defoilant they used over there to clear the jungles out. I said, then I know darn well I'm going to give it its props. All right. So I made my mind up that I'll figure out what to do while I'm sheltered in place. So that's my answer. It's kind of a convoluted answer, but I think that as long as the opportunity exists for one athlete to go down by something ugly than a well-timed hit, it's not worth it for me.
Right.
It's just not worth it for me.
Uh, that's a great answer. I know Faith is frozen for a second. There she is. I feel the same. Rick. I feel the same. I mean, especially we don't know the long lasting effects of it, but
Yeah.
I do like the progression. I mean, make a decision, and I know that Yale made a decision back in early July, but they have all the scientists, they have all the advanced scientists over there, and so I feel very comfortable. It is difficult, again, not to be able to watch the game, but to your point, just what you shared. I mean, until we know that there is vaccine, that there is something that people are not going to follow protocol. You'll get into the stadium. I mean, I watch like going to grocery store, okay? And I watch people. I watch when I walk through. I mean, people are still struggling with just kind of following and taking it seriously. And you lost 3 people because you really understand the dynamic.
Yeah.
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 But
And
no,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I mean, it's hard. And you know what? It's hard because there's so much. It's hard because normal. for some people is their way of life, their income, and then a lot of these kids, I mean, they're not getting any younger. They're worried they'll never play again. So it's a lot. Everybody obviously has a reasoning to why they need to play, why they want to play. And then everyone also is like, no one knows what this virus can cause you in the long term. You don't know how your body will personally affect to it. So it's scary. It is, and it's hard. And I'm glad, I say this every show, but I'm glad I'm not on the board of any NCAA, any schools, because this is a hard decision to make. It's hard because,
Yeah.
and that's why there's really no solution to this. And that's why it's like you just hope that they test the kids regularly, they have the resources ready for these kids, because that's really the best you can do, is try to be ahead of it before it happens. Because I mean, every university has now had student athletes who have tested positive, or faculty or classes. It's just scary. I mean, I said the other day when I was watching Notre Dame Duke game, they had people in the fans and in the stands, and it looked like they were packed house. But it was like they had been virtual learning for a while, and they had been. So these are like outside people coming in, fans, season ticket holders coming in, and it's just integrating with the students and the student athletes. So it is going to be interesting. I'm interested to see how the Big Ten handles it, because they definitely were the ones putting their foot down, but they only lasted a month. So we will see, because there's a lot of money on the line for this, and a lot of people's jobs on the line, a lot of kids' futures. So hopefully they're taking the precautions they need to make sure these kids are safe if they're going to take these risks in a way.
Right. We know what I heard
And you
was if a kid tests positive, they're out for 29 days.
Interesting.
So that they're testing every day. So the flip side of that is that most of these Big Ten teams have a huge amount of kids on their roster. They're over 20 kids. But, you know, I heard Levy spent on these kids are really understanding the importance of being responsible when they get off the field, because they do have to go back into the mainstream population when they get out of practice.
Yep.
Because basically, 29 days, your season's over.
Absolutely.
You know, what we have left, 29 days, your season is over. By being so, those are the kind of things that I like hearing, because it's a matter of being responsible, wearing your mask, whatever it was reminded. It's about that.
Yeah.
So appreciate your feedback on that, Rick. That was really good.
Yeah. Well, it's not an easy thing to say.
Right.
I mean, that's a big part of Faith's life right now. And I know that those are tough thoughts to have, you know. But from the standpoint of being responsible to a certain extent for children, and I was not an educator, I'm not a trained educator, or any of that. You know, board members do different things. You know, our job is to clear the pathway and to provide the resources for teachers to teach, administrators to administer, okay, and for us to provide all of the protections that are necessary to go into a community. And a school district is a community of people. You have certified staff, you have food staff, you have cleaning staff. Those are all important people who this thing that can affect any of them. And you need only make one mistake in this thing. You need to inadvertently, rub your eye, or put your hand up to cover a cough on your mouth, and you could contract this thing. And to me, that's frightening. When I was in service, which was a big part of my life, because I didn't want to go. It took me right out of grad school. I never wanted to go, to some place 9,000 miles from my home, to live behind a rice dike in fact. So I was very angry with it. But the one thing I see that we talk about in group therapy, is that those enemies in daytime mission you could see, and you could respect them, because they were fighting for something that they believed in, and we were. This virus you can't see. You can't. You have no idea. And when a doctor says you could take, that protein and put one virus cell and 4,999 other of its buddies on the head of a needle, That's how small it is. I said, my God. And it only takes one for them to replicate.
Yep.
All right. So I said, Jesus, I mean, how do you fight that? Well, you know, you don't fight that by listening to people who know everything and don't know anything. You fight that by listening to people who at least have some training and have some experience with it. So Faith, I don't say anything to put you down. I think what you're doing with the right thing. And to answer your question from my perspective, I believe wholeheartedly that the Big Ten, the Big Eight, the Athletic Conference, ACC, I think they're all doing the right thing to protect their athletes.
Right.
And I really do. I have a lot of confidence in that. But despite your best efforts, you've seen those people who do everything right and they're taken away from you. And you said, why? Why would you take away that person who was the epitome of good? And there is no answer to it. Other than that, it's life. It's a bitter pill. But people have to, have faith in that they can continue on.
Right.
That's the theme of your, of your program, and I like that theme. I've lived that theme, and I believe in that theme. So it's, we're in tough times.
Right.
There's no question about it. We're in tough times, and my goal, I tell my wife all the time, for my wife, my kids, I can't hug them and keep them in this house with me. My daughter, you survived 4 years of college away and 5 years, in Columbus at Abercrombie away, and now you want to move downtown to, to Little Italy. I don't want you to do it. I'd rather you stay home, but that's not realistic.
Yep.
So I just say my prayers and I say, God, take care of my family. You can do a better job of taking care of my family than I can. And I have to just accept that, So I don't want to get too prophetic. I promised your father that I checked my watch.
Well, no, but let me change gears a little bit. We're kind of winding down to the last 7-8 minutes. But you shared a story, and I want to kind of shine the light back on you and the influence But I remember watching Faith walk off the graduation stage, and I watched you beam up, and that was just knowing what you did. Been a part of our lives, watching your proudness, obviously not proud. But you shared a story with me yesterday that I thought was absolutely powerful about the influence and the impact and the joy that you have as part of one of the most proudest moments, one of the highlights of your career as a board president. And maybe you can share that before the end of our show.
You mean the young man?
Yes, I do.
The young man. Well, people always ask me, why do you do this? You're a professional, you're a businessman, etc. You're working, and you're volunteering and spending just literally hours on hours. Going to a board meeting once or twice a month is one thing, but it's the work that goes on behind the scenes in closed meetings, hour upon hour of planning, and making certain that you get to a point that you can make decisions that help superior people like Dr. Mansfield. And hiring him, he's one of the top superintendents in the nation, without question, in the state. And so you realize that you actually do have some impact. Faith, there was at HF, just like when we went through the thing with IHSA, and unlike larger school districts like CPS or like LA School, County School District, et cetera, if a child violates one of the 7 or 8 principles in the student, discipline principles in the student handbook, they can create an event that could end up in what we refer to as a death penalty, which is expulsion. Because once you're expelled from a public school, you can't attend another public school in the state of Illinois. So that opens the door now to the families having to go to a Marion for $1,200 a year. And a lot of parents, can't do that. So I had a young man that came in, his parents took the option to have a full board hearing. And what he had done was he somehow or another lost his temper. He had lost control of his emotions. And he was in the weight room, the old weight room, and he threw a 2.5-pound weight plate at Simcoe, okay, who was
Okay.
the weight plate. Okay, Simcoe moved out of the way, and the weight plate went through. Remember the glass in South, past the girls' bathroom, okay, to pass the weight room. It went through that glass during a passing period and never touched one student. And when it hit the wall, they put a dent in it that was about 4 inches deep. So obviously that violated, the safety principles in the student handbook, and so he came up for it. So when he came in, his parents came in with him. His mother was a doctor. It's a beautiful black lady, very, very well spoken. And the father was her husband. She had remarried. And after listening to the presentation by the deans and the principal, and then hearing the presentation by the attorney that they hired to defend the boy, we asked them to adjourn, and we looked at this kid's records and the like, because we couldn't do that before the expulsion hearing. Okay, we had to do it during the presentation or during the expulsion hearing. When we looked at this guy's production, he was a first semester sophomore. He didn't know what a B looked like. And then we looked at his record. He had not done anything. He didn't have one other chip on his student files. So we said, what's wrong with this picture? Well, as we discussed it, we began to observe the dynamic between he and his mom and this new husband. And it was not good. Now, remember, on our board, we had John Farrell, who was a psychiatrist. And he gave us some insights into what might be going on in his home, which later proved to be pretty good. And so the Delta program, as you know, was our alternative to expulsion. I had a big hand in creating that program. And so we said, look, I asked the question because we couldn't reach a decision. I asked the question at the board. I said, does this young man frighten anybody? And he was about 5'8", and he was kind of a slight young man. And so we looked around, and then I said, no, he doesn't frighten us. He seems to be a nice young man. I said, I'm of the same view. So I asked for a motion to put him into Delta for the 1 semester. So, we remove them from the student population, put them in the Delta in the North Building, and they get an opportunity to work back. He never missed. He continued straight on as a straight A AP student. So fast forward. Unfortunately, your graduation was in the gym, where we had to have those steps. I didn't think we'd ever stop rising. We came up and walked down, and those 4-inch heels. I said, Jesus Christ, thank God there's not one more step. Because faith is grown so much at God Almighty. But at any rate, so this graduation was outside. Matter of fact, that's why I sent your father that picture, because that was the commencement. And so I looked out as the kids were coming up to receive their diploma. We give an opportunity to shake hands, and to shake hands, we hand them their diploma, and they get an opportunity to take a photo. And if their parents ask us, they can come up and take a photo too. And so this young man's parents had asked. And so when he came up, he was like you. He came up and he grabbed my hand, and I'm looking at him, and he's about 6'4.5". And so I get ready to let go, and he wouldn't let go of my hand. And I'm saying, I wasn't weak. He had my hand. I said, thank you, young man. Is there something else? He said, do you remember me? And I looked at him, and I didn't. And I said, I was panicky. I said, well, no, but you've grown so. Well, what student doesn't grow a little bit? Okay, in high school. So he said, and he told me his name. And I thought about it for a minute, and then he said, I want to thank you for not pulling up the ladder on me. And I said, what do you mean? Then he told me his name. He said, do you remember the hearing for the kid that threw the weight? And I said, oh, yes. I said, how's he doing? He said, that's me. He had grown from about 5'9" to 6'4" over the next 2.5 years. And I said, wow. I broke ranks and gave him the man hug. And he said, I just wanted to let you know I got a full scholarship academically, Doctor. And I said, unbelievable. And I tell you what, I don't think my feet touched the ground for the rest of the graduation ceremony. And so when you can do that, and you can see the developmental aspects of what a child can become, given another chance, I said, I think I'd start again and do this for the next 15 years
Oh wow.
because just having a hand in that kind of a story, just one, makes you understand how the impact that good teachers and good administrators and just basically good families and people around individuals, the impact they can have on a human being. That person's going to do something much like yourself. And our goal as a board was to put as many good people out into the world as we could. So anyway, that's my story. That's
And
one of the highlights of my time there.
well, I figured you would love that story before you wrap up the show. But Kyle, we appreciate you so much. What a wonderful story, and we want to appreciate and thank you how much you've been to our lives. And it's just a joy to have you on the show. I tell you that, right, babe?
Yeah. Well,
Well, thank you so much. No, thank you for joining us. Um, we love having great guests. I know our readers do too. It's always it's a lot. They get tired of here listening to us every day. But yeah, thank you again, everyone, for joining us this wonderful Friday morning. We're so thankful for those of you who stopped by to discuss and meet our guests. We want to especially thank Amazon Fire, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Apple TV, and of course, out of Phoenix, Arizona, E360 TV. Again, this is Faith Family Focus, where we use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain others on strength their family core. And of course, our slogan, let go, let God, let go, let faith, let go, let love. Everyone have a great Friday and a very safe weekend.